When you hear AI in education, what do you picture? Do you immediately think about ChatGPT and students cheating? What if AI in schools had very little to do with students using it at all? Welcome back to the show, or welcome to the show. If you are anti AI, if you are pro AI, or if you're somewhere in the middle trying to figure out what it all really means, I think today's episode is going to be for you. Welcome to the Education Evolution, and you're listening to Tech Evolution. This is the space where we look at how technology is changing education, how education is changing technology, and what all that actually means for the people inside of schools. I am your host, Lindsay, affectionately known as Miss Black, and today I want to introduce you to something that I think is a really interesting example of what AI in education can actually look like. Because no, it's not ChatGPT. It's not a student using a bot to write an essay. And it's not even a teacher asking AI for support writing a lesson plan. It's actually all about school schedules, which feels so random, but it's going to make sense by the end of this episode. Okay, so I came across a company called Timely Schools. And Timely Schools is an AI-powered master scheduling platform for K-12 schools and districts. The company says it currently works with more than 90 districts across 22 states, representing about 500,000 students. And when I first saw it, I thought, well, first I was like, wow. And then I was more like, well, duh. Of course AI can build a school schedule. Like, why I didn't think of that? But then I really started to think about it from my experience as an educator. And I realized this makes a whole lot of sense, actually. So what is master scheduling? Let's start there, because if you're not in education or some, like, I don't know, operation type of position, you may have never even heard of this phrase. Master scheduling is essentially figuring out who is taking what class, with which teacher, in which room, and at what time. And we're going to talk about middle schools and high schools just for this example, where you have students taking different courses. You got teachers who have different schedules, classrooms that can only hold so many students, and then there are students who need specific courses, electives, some need intervention or special education services aligned with their IEP requirements. And teacher availability influences how schedules are made too. And then you have to make all those things work at the same time. And something I don't think I even fully appreciated until I became an educator was the fact that a schedule isn't just a schedule, right? The schedule affects the student experience, which actually sounds pretty obvious when I say it out loud, but I think it's easy to forget when you're actually in the building. Let me explain. I remember being in the classroom and having students pulled out for intervention or other services during a time when I was teaching something they actually needed to practice. And I would really be standing at the door like, okay, you're going to take the kid, but I don't even know how we ended up with the scheduling this way. And I'm also thinking, so there's no other time that you can come get these kids for these services. But at this point, I'm young. And at the time, I didn't actually have the knowledge to push back. And there are a ridiculous number of moving pieces when you're working in a school building. So you legitimately cannot worry about each one of those issues at the same time. So let's bring it back to Timely Schools. And the question is, so what does Timely actually do? And this is where it gets funky. Timely uses AI to help schools create optimized master schedules. But I want to be really clear about something. The AI isn't sitting there deciding, here's what I think the school should do, okay? The humans are establishing the rules and making the priorities. The technology helps work through the enormous number of possible combinations. So you got to think of it like a giant puzzle. You got your students, you got your teachers, you got the classrooms, your courses, classes, whatever, your requirements, the restrictions, the whole nine yards, okay? And all of those pieces have to fit together without creating conflicts. So instead of one person manually trying to move all those pieces around, because it do be landed on one person, the technology can process those constraints and generate scheduling options much faster. Now, the humans still review it, and the humans are still making the final decisions. The human in loop approach with AI is always necessary with all AI, but the AI is doing the heavy lifting. And honestly, I think that's a really important distinction when we're talking about AI in education. So why does this even matter? For me, there are three big reasons. Number one, time. Scheduling can take administrators an enormous amount of time. And if technology can take some of that logistical work off their plate, that potentially gives administrators more time to actually do the work that requires them to be present. So supporting teachers so a teaching career can feel more sustainable. Talking to families so that all families feel like they are genuinely part of the school community. And just physically being in classrooms, solving problems and getting to know the students that they serve. That's honestly, I think that's the most important role that they have. Okay, number two, complexity. Humans are really good at judgment, but we're not necessarily great at manually calculating hundreds of competing variables at the same time. That's where technology can be really useful. And then there's number three, perspective. This one might be the most important to me because humans bring our own experiences and preferences into decision making, right? I once had a principal who openly said she wasn't really a math person. Not that I even believe that people are or are not math people. But, anyways, it's completely human to feel that way about yourself, right? But it did make me think, how could her personal comfort or preferences or her unconscious biases about math influence the decisions she's making around the schedules? You know, because the schedules impact the math classes. What gets prioritized? What gets overlooked? What feels important to her? AI doesn't magically eliminate bias, right? But it can potentially give you another way to look at the problem. And to me, that's really interesting. And I'd really like to see how this type of AI impacts the school building. Like, I want to be on the ground, boots on the ground journalism. And I don't look at something like this and think, oh, AI is going to replace the person who creates the master schedule. I actually think the opposite. This is a really cumbersome task. And if technology can help someone do that task faster and potentially identify options that they may not have seen on their own, then to me, that's an enhancement. Yeah, not a replacement at all. I know people who either wanted to be a principal or were principals and then became disinterested in the role, or they left the role because they realized how many administrative tasks it took to be a principal. And it took them away from the whole reason that they were in the field, which was impacting the kids. I think that's also an important way for educators who are nervous about AI to think about technology. We don't have to start with, how is AI going to replace me? We can also ask, what parts of my job are incredibly time consuming that I don't actually need to spend all of my time doing? Because getting time back is valuable, especially in that school building. I cannot stress it enough. But I do want to put a little asterisk on all of this because I think it's really important that when we're excited about what AI can do, we also ask what AI should do. UNESCO's Global AI Ethics Framework emphasizes things like human oversight, transparency, fairness, accountability, privacy, and environmental sustainability. It specifically argues that AI should enhance human capacity without removing ultimate human responsibility. I stand 10 toes down on that. And I think that's especially important in education because we're not scheduling packages to be delivered. We're scheduling children, human beings. So I want AI systems used in schools to be transparent about what information they're using. I want people to be able to question the outcomes, okay, without consequence. I want humans making the final decisions. I want student data protected. That's at the very top. And I want us thinking about the broader impact of the technology too, because efficiency is important, right? But efficiency can't be the only thing we optimize for. We shouldn't create a system that saves a school 3 hours if it creates a different problem for students, families, teachers, communities, or even the environment. That's silly. The goal should be technology that makes the system better for people. And that's really why I wanted to talk about Timely. Because when we say AI in education, I think our minds immediately go to ChatGPT. I know y'all minds be going to students cheating and AI generated assignments. And those are parts of conversations that are absolutely worth having. But AI in education is much bigger than that. And that's what I need people to take away from this conversation. It can be used to analyze information, solve logistical problems, and potentially give educators and administrators time back. And in this case, AI is literally helping solve a school scheduling problem. And honestly, I think that's a pretty good example of where this technology can go. Not replacing the people doing that work necessarily, but helping people do the work differently and in a more meaningful way. So the next time you hear someone say AI in education, I want you to think beyond ChatGPT, okay? Think about the systems behind the classroom, because sometimes the most interesting technology isn't the thing that the students are even using. It's the thing that's quietly working behind the scenes to make the school day work better, more seamless. I'm Lindsay Black, and this has been Tech Evolution. I appreciate you being here. Making it this far in the episode, whether you're pro AI or no AI, because no matter where you fall on the spectrum, it's important to be informed on what's out there so we can question and think critically about the impact and changes that need to be made. Okay? All right now. Well, until next time, I want you to stay curious, ask better questions, and don't just ask what technology can do, ask what it should do. All right? And I'm gonna see you next time.